Welcome back, everybody, to our playoff previews here on the Champions Round YouTube page. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button and download the app. Today, we're going to be talking about the Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets here, the 3-6 matchup in the Eastern Conference. And this should be a different type of series, right? We've seen a lot of heavy hitting series here in the Western Conference, but in this Eastern Conference, this is one of those top-heavy matchups versus a team that was really constructed here at the trade deadline in the Brooklyn Nets. You're with your host, Justin Henry, and Matt. Matt, my man, how are you feeling about this series heading into it?
I have one question. How are the Brooklyn Nets going to defend Joel Embiid, right? Only time you got to throw the other two matchups or the three matchups out of the window. The last time they played with, this constructed lineup, like you said, Embiid went for 37 points, 13 rebounds. I think he shot like 12 of 18 or 14, something crazy from the field. Obviously, Claxton, I assume, will be the primary defender. If he gets in foul trouble, I think Embiid could explode in the series.
Yeah.
But the storylines are exciting. I think you kind of called it. Like, I didn't know if I thought Brooklyn was going to be in the right position, like after the trade deadline where they could make it in, but they kind of impressed me here and there. And Mikal Bridges has looked fantastic, obviously a Philly native himself. But yeah, I think Joel Embiid, I'm really intrigued to see that matchup and how Brooklyn deals with the potential MVP.
Yeah, they've been on the second half of the season. Joel Embiid has really been on a mission, and I expect that to continue. Claxton has had a resurgence of a year. He looked like a different player this entire season. So shout out to Nick Claxton for having an awesome season. And this team, I think the expectation was after they traded Kyrie, after they traded KD, the team would just implode, right? But this is a collection of good talent. They're just not a true team right now. You got individual performances. Spencer Dinwiddie, we've seen look great at times. Mikal Bridges has looked great at times. Even guys like Cam Thomas, he's come in there and exploded for 40-point games as well. So there's talent on the team. It just doesn't feel like a team. And like you mentioned, that pick and roll that James Harden and Joel Embiid are able to execute, that's going to be a tough matchup for this Nets team who doesn't really have the size to compete with the Joel Embiid or any of the defensive, outside of Mikal Bridges, a lot of the defensive pieces that you would need in order to shut down this Philly offense. So where I see this as a series that the Sixers can kind of flex the fact that, hey, we are the team to beat in the Eastern Conference. I think that they can flex that in this series. And I'm not sure how long the series goes. But what I do know is that Doc Rivers will definitely have to say, hey, you know what? I got to get Harden and Embiid in the right spots, get my secondary players executing at a high level so that next series when we have to go potentially up against the Boston Celtics or we make a deep Eastern Conference playoff run, these guys are locked in and ready to go.
I wonder how Harden's going to look physically. He's kind of my X factor here. And his ability to command the offense, beating the pick and like off isolation.
What are you concerned about with Harden? Like, is it the
way
he had
I know he had some injury stuff. Like I think it was a month ago. I forget what exactly. I'll put it up on the screen right now. I was reading about it a little earlier. I think there's going to be a lot of questions here. If Philly struggles, God forbid if they go out in the first round, you got to start looking at things and asking like, is James Harden on the move? Like, what's next for this Philadelphia team? I mean, I think this is a really.
It would be crazy if they lost in the first round. Like, I don't see that happening at all. And I'm sure we'll get to our predictions for the series here in a second, but it would be something. This entire organization will be blown up. The process would be over.
It'd be over. I mean, I think Philly fans are kind of waiting. They're thinking like every year it's like, okay, this is our year. We've been waiting for this. Joel Embiid, like you said, MVP. But when I look back at this series and when I look at like this Brooklyn Nets team, I think Brooklyn really is just kind of, a bunch of good players like put together. There's not really much of a team there. Now, give it a couple years and the right pieces. I think they have the right structure, but Philly should take care of business, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so as well. This Nets team, I like them, man. I feel like they'll be scrappy at times. It's just can they keep up with the talent that the Sixers have? And you and I have talked about this on our show over the course of the entire season. The East is top heavy for a reason. The collection of talent and superstars that are available, it just makes it that there's a clear top three in the East. And I think that's going to be flexed a little bit, and that'll be a problem for this Nets team that has really good talent. But this, like you mentioned, is a couple years away from actually being a true contender in the East. And I think that's by design after they had the big three and had to blow it up. So let's get into our predictions and why. Obviously, both of us are kind of leaning on that Sixers side, but talk a little bit about your prediction for this series, Matt.
I'm just going to quickly throw this out. I wish Ben Simmons was playing. I feel like we were robbed of that. We already have like the Doc Rivers versus son-in-law storyline, and obviously Mikal Bridges was drafted by Philly, went to Villanova, all that stuff. I'm gonna go with Philly in 5. I think Brooklyn's gonna win 1 at home, but ultimately I think the Joel Embiid, James Harden, Tyrese Maxey. I just think Philly has a little too much to offer right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you. So I got Sixers in 5, and it's not for the fact that I think that the Nets won't be competitive. It's just down the stretch of these games when you have guys that can execute like Harden and be their closers, and we've seen them all throughout the season. Harden has not been playing at an MVP level, but Embiid has. Embiid has been playing at an MVP level and probably is the MVP of this season. And this is a good chance for him to flex all of that and show why the Sixers team should be there. Where I do have some concerns is X's and O's. Will Doc Rivers be able to adjust if needed if this Nets team does play better than expectations, right? I think so. We've seen Doc Rivers be questioned for this, to have 3-1 leads against inferior teams. So if this next team does get hot, if they get a couple home wins, a win on the road here, does that change the series? Does that change the confidence for Joel Embiid, for James Harden, who both of these guys, Matt, they've had their own playoff struggles. Like we've seen James Harden not look like James Harden at times in the playoffs. We've seen Embiid come up short a number of times in the playoffs. Now they have a guy in Tyrese Maxey who can kind of carry some of that load when those guys are struggling. He is a little bit more of a closer at times. But there is a problematic with all 3 of those guys, Doc Rivers, James Harden, and Joel Embiid.
And I think, for this playoff, not just this series, but this playoff run, like one of the reasons they threw so much money into a player like PJ Tucker, right? Like the experience, someone that, can get you a big shot, someone that's going to lock you down on defense. Like when I look at like 2 players, like the Jay Crowder pickup in Milwaukee, right?
Yes.
And then the PJ Tucker move for Philadelphia, it's like they were designed for these playoffs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And getting the veterans in there who can keep things grounded when things do start to unravel. The Nets really don't have anybody like that. They got like your Joe Harris's, your Dinwiddies, but the Sixer team does. So if you had to give a shot in the dark, if you thought the Nets could win this series, 0 out of 100% chance, what percent chance would you give the Nets of winning the series?
I'm gonna go 0.5.
You couldn't even give them the 1.
You know what? I gave the Clippers a little bit of a chance.
Yeah.
But when I look at this matchup, when I look at this series, like if Philadelphia loses this first round, I will be shocked. I'll come on here. You can clip this up all you want. You can
get a
make
reaction video, right?
You get a reaction video, like the cold takes. You can tag me on Twitter. I don't see it happening. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm kind of in that range, but I'll give it like a 2%, right? It's a little stronger than just like a 0 or a 1 because I can see a world where this Sixers team kind of collapses. Like I don't think it happens, but if it did happen, it wouldn't be the first time we've seen, like I mentioned, that collection of big 3. We've seen them kind of collapse at times when they're supposed to win. So I wouldn't throw it necessarily completely out the window, but I ain't giving the Nets much of a chance. So I can see it 5-6 game series max, but I think the Sixers handle business. So guys, let us know your guys' thoughts in the comments on this Sixers and Nets series. Are you guys giving the Nets a chance? And be sure to subscribe to the channel and download the Champions Roundup. Play Daily Dozen Spicy Slips along with us. Enjoy the NBA playoffs. We'll catch you on the next episode.